Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Behavior in Living Organisms. Questions 21 to 25. What is the importance of each of the following behaviors in animals? Imprinting, habituation, associated learning. Part A. What is the importance of imprinting behavior in animals? Bond pairing, with the parents guaranteeing parental protection. Responsible for future bond pairing in young ones. Pairing between members of the species or sex. Enables offspring to rapidly acquire survival skills possessed by parents, for example, learning to fly, capture prey. Imprinting behaviors like subconscious learning, not to mate with relatives, limits chances of inbreeding. Is a training of circus animals by imprinting them with their trainers. Establishing an instant bond with the parent who will impact essential skills for survival, provide food, offer protection and warmth. Part B. What is the importance of habituation behavior in animals? Helps animals identify neutral elements in their environment. The animals learn to disregard an important stimuli, saving it from fatigue, energy, and time wastage. Lower animal stress and anxiety to seemingly threatening but rather harmless and important stimuli. Minimize sensory motor demands of the animal in responding to virtually neutral stimuli. Enable animals prioritize their responses. That is, they tend to significant stimuli, ignore less significant ones. Help animals to recognize important clues or signals and hence adapt to the ever-changing environment by offering an appropriate response. Part C. What is the importance of associative learning behavior in animals? Let's firstly look at the operant conditioning or what we call trial and error. It's one part of associative learning behavior. This enables animals to continuously improve its behavior and make less and less errors with repetitive trials. Animals learn to reinforce behavior associated with rewards and avoid that associated with punishments. It is the basis for training animals. The positive and negative reinforcement motivates the animal to explore its environment, identifying areas associated with the punishment and rewards. Several trials associated with the punishment demotivate the animal, as well as being energy and time consuming. Part C. What is the importance of associative learning behavior in animals? We shall now look at the importance of classical conditioning, another part of associative learning behavior. This enables animals modify their behavior in such a way that they reap maximum reward from the environment and get into less trouble, or what we call punishment. As a result, they get to learn their predators. Predators learn their praise, palatable from unpalatable species. Programs animals to associate conditioned response not only to natural unconditioned stimuli, but also to newly acquired conditioned stimuli. Organisms learn to associate unconditioned stimuli with the conditioned stimuli, so produce a response. Wasteful exaggeration of conditioned response in case of the presence of the conditioned stimulus, but in the absence of an unconditioned stimulus. (22) In what ways might normal imprinting of goslings be important for their survival? Part B. Write short notes of each of the following concepts of animal behavior. Biorhythms, vacuum activity, displacement activity, courtship. In what ways might the normal imprinting of goslings be important to their survival? Imprinting, this influences social behavior. enabling the gosling to follow its mother in order to gain food, protection, and shelter. And when it matures, to mate and interact positively with other geese. Write short notes on each of the following concepts of animal behavior. Biorhythms. Biorhythm, they are behavioral activities of an organism that occur at regular intervals and are controlled by external factors together with the biological clock. For example, courtship displays nestling behavior of birds in spring and migration of certain bird species in autumn. Rhythms involve internal clock are called endogenous rhythm, and those controlled by external factors are termed as exogenous rhythm. Part B. Write short notes on each of the concepts of animal behavior. Vacuum activity. Vacuum activity is a form of behavior in which stressed, annoyed, or disappointed organism performs a normal response towards a wrong organism or object in a way of reducing frustration. The organism has high motivation but no releaser present itself. For example, showing irritation towards someone who is not the cause of the irritation, but act as a substitute. Write short notes on each of the concepts of animal behavior. Displacement activity. Displacement activity is a form of behavior in which a stressed organism performs an action that is trivial and irrelevant to the situation in order to release frustration. It occurs when the motivation is high, but two conflicting releasers present themselves. For example, one pair of birds involved in territorial dispute may resort to nest building activities, such as pulling up grass after being defeated. Write short notes on each of the following concepts of animal behavior. Courtship. You can write some notes. Number 23. With suitable examples, describe the different types of stimuli. Part B. Outline Roman number 1 significance of releases. 2. Roles of hormones in determining behavior of animals. C. State the factors that stimulate migratory behavior in animals. Part A. With suitable examples, describe the different types of stimuli. Motivational stimuli. These are stimuli that determine the state of the animal response. Motivators may be due to internal physiological state determined by the levels of hormones in the body or external stimuli, for example, environmental factors such as light, temperature, chemicals, and many others. In birds, when the day length becomes longer, they are stimulated to reproduce, and the ovaries and the testes become mature. Releasing stimuli. These elicit a behavioral response, causing the organism to act in a certain way. For example, attractiveness of food, color, shape, and posture can cause the organism to respond. Terminating stimuli is that stimulus that brings behavioral response that end or to an end. For example, satiety of food, finished nest, ejaculation, and many others. Part B. Outline the significance of releases. They coordinate the activities of the organism in the territory. Releases act as a means of communication among members of the same species. They help to avoid open conflicts. They are used as signals for protection of the territories. They act as appeasers. Outline the roles of hormones in determining behavior of animals. Hormones may affect the growth of the nervous connection in the brain during development. They may suppress or enhance effectors. They may affect nerve cells and synapses in the brain by blocking inhibitory pathways or opening excitatory pathways. Part C. State the factors that stimulate migratory behaviors in animals. Change in water temperature for the case of migratory fish like salmon. Strength and direction of the water current. Changes in chemical composition of water, hormonal changes, seasonal changes in temperatures in case of terrestrial animals, change in photoperiod. .24. How can the transfer of short-term memory to long-term memory be enhanced? Part B. With examples, state the relevance of the various pheromones in animal behavior. How can transfer of short-term memory to long-term memory be enhanced? 1. Rehearsal. 2. Adapting a positive emotional state or attitude. 3. Linking new information to information already in the long-term memory. B. With examples, state the relevance of various pheromones in animal behavior. Alarm pheromones. Some organisms like the ants, the bees, the termites release volatile substances that trigger flight, aggression as an alert to the rest about the incoming threat or predator. Territorial pheromones. These mark the boundaries and identify an organism's territory. For example, urine in dogs, cats contain territorial pheromones. Trail pheromones. Social insects use trail pheromones made of volatile hydrocarbons to mark their path towards the source of food and return to their nests. For example, in ants. Signal pheromones. This causes short-term changes like the neurotransmitter released that activate or triggers a response. For example, gonadotrophin releasing hormone in rats elicites lordosis behavior important in copulation. Releaser pheromones. These alter the behavior of the recipient. For example, the mother rabbit release mammary pheromones that trigger immediate nursing behavior in their babies. Others use powerful attractant molecules to attract males from a long distance. Primer pheromones. These trigger the change in developmental events. For example, the queen bees, the queen termites, queen ants, they secrete primer pheromones that are eaten by workers and preventing development of reproductive ability. Aggression pheromones, important in mate selection, overcoming host resistance by mass attack and defense against predators, common in arthropods, Diptera, Emptera, and many others. Sex pheromones. This increases the availability of the female for breeding. They promote sexual interaction, for example, reproductively receptive female moth attract male moth by emitting releaser pheromone into the air. Epideictic pheromones. These secure safe breeding or hatching grounds for organisms. For example, female insects who lay their eggs in certain area, they release these pheromones in the vicinity of their clutch to signal other females of the same species to clutch somewhere else. "25. Define the term behavior and describe the difference between instinctive and learned behavior in animals." B. With examples of instinctive behavior, explain fully the way in which the response is brought about. Define the term behavior and describe the difference between instinctive and learned behavior in animals. Animal behavior, it refers to observable responses of an animal to the environment around it. Responses usually involve movements of all or part of the body, but may include other changes like color changes. Instinctive behavior implies that the animal has inherited responses to a particular stimuli, triggered automatically, fixed action patterns, behaviors that have been modified over many generations by natural selection, culminating in complex behavioral patterns essential in animals with short lifespan, with no time for trial and error. Learning or solitary animals with little opportunity for learning with or from others of their species include taxis, kinesis, their instincts and social behavior, etc. Learned behavior involves memory, is an adaptive behavior as a result of the previous experience or environment. They include habituation, classical conditioning, for example, Pavlov's dogs, operant conditioning, that is trial and error learning, exploratory learning, instinct learning, imprinting. Part B, with examples of instinctive behavior, explain fully the way in which the response is brought about. Deep tendon reflexes, such as knee-jerk reflex. When stretched, receptors detect stretch in the tendon. Impulses are sent via the predetermined pathway along the sensory neuron to the spinal cord, to motor neuron, to muscle, or what we call the effectors, which contracts. Reflex actions are innate, determined by inherited nervous pathway. Food begging response of young birds is an example of stereotyped behavior. Involves fixed action pattern. Color displayed by open mouth of nestling, tapping on the red spot on the parent's beak, their specific stimuli called signal stimuli. Parent bird responds by feeding the chick. In many insects, signal stimuli activate genetically pre-programmed nervous pathways, which make muscle perform appropriate movements. movements, kinesis is a random movement in which rate of movement is related to intensity of stimulus. For example, the wood lice moves faster in dry environments than in damp ones. Result is that the wood lice stay longer in favorable environment. Taxis occurs in response to the direction of the stimulus. Wood lice show negative phototaxis, moves away from light. Result is they again are more likely to find favorable environment. Thank you very much for participating in behavior in living organisms. Questions 21 to 25. Please do like, share, and subscribe.